What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex. In this video, I wanted to do something a little fun, a little bit different. I want to talk about the 3 most likely DC games that we could be getting. Now, these don't include games that are confirmed, right? So Wonder Woman doesn't count, Arkham Shadow, which is the background here, although this is a theme. We'll get to it as the video goes. Games that are confirmed do not count. We have a little info in terms of like who's working on games. Like we know WB Montreal is working on 2 games. One is kind of single player. One is kind of co-op, like a Gotham Knights type thing. We know small things like that. But these are going to go over, I think, the most likely DC games that we're going to be getting over the next couple of years. So let's start with a personal favorite of mine and one that I do think makes a lot of sense. And going back to WB Montreal, actually, Teen Titans. I really think Teen Titans works in the current landscape of the gaming industry, of WB, and even, although we know very little, what they're working on. So, in my opinion, Teen Titans was already half assembled. Like, you already put in an okay amount of the lore legwork with Gotham Knights. And Gotham Knights is going to be an interesting game looking back at it, right? Because, like, did it do unbelievably well in terms of sales or even, like, what we thought of it? No, not really. But I think it actually, under the radar, did pretty fine. I think long-term opinions of that game is actually going to be pretty positive as time goes. Not that it's all of a sudden going to be a game of the year, like retroactively, right? Game of the year contender. No. I think it's going to be a fine game that people maybe look at, a slightly better down the line. But also, the game did sell. Like the game, I imagine the game did much better than Suicide Squad, even in just like raw numbers. I believe that. And I feel like I think Gotham Knights was already confirmed to sell over 5 million. So again, where am I going with this? You could stick with some of the stuff that happened in Gotham Knights. It's not that big of a taboo thing. I don't think people would absolutely turn their back towards you if you dipped back into Gotham Knights and you've already done a little of the work assembling a pseudo type, you know what I mean? Like a Teen Titans like thing. Now, is it just that? No, honestly, it's not. I think Teen Titans is a popular franchise. You're going to notice as this list goes, well, I would like a Green Lantern or even Flash or Aquaman. And maybe some of those happen. Maybe like a Flash or Aquaman specifically. You have to remember how long it takes to make games, the budget, how risky it is. Some of these games are just flat out never going to be made. They normally stick to like the go-tos. We had a Teen Titans game. That's maybe a little bit of a part of it, right? I think Teen Titans has the name appeal. It has enough of them. It has the cooperative elements. Now, again, going back to WB Montreal, 2 games. One is single player. One is co-op, a lot like Gotham Knights. Teen Titans makes a lot of sense for that to me. So that's where I come at that is I think it's popular enough. It's big enough. I think if you want to keep going down the cooperative, if it's live service or if it's not, if you want to go down that kind of road, I think you have Teen Titans that you're just like you had a Suicide Squad or like a Justice League, but now Suicide Squad's been used up. Justice League has probably also been used up. Now I think you would go individual members versus like an entire Justice League game. But you do have like one other type of squad that you can still mess with. And I think mess with in a good way. Don't want them destroyed. But I think that's Teen Titans. So that's my number one. And in terms of, are we linking it to a studio? I don't think I did this with all the games on my list. But I would think WB Montreal would do it. Okay, number 2. This is kind of cheating because this goes off of, what we talked about a few weeks ago. I think another very likely game that's not confirmed, right, but probably years out, I think is a new Batman Arkham game, or at least a new Batman game, probably from Rocksteady. And this goes into, all the stuff we talked about with Suicide Squad. The game didn't work. The game, I think, largely would be looked at as a failure. They are going to seek redemption. I mean, we're kind of piggybacking off that Jason Schreier article, right? It seems like they will be given at least one more chance, and they will probably go back to what they're familiar with. Now, as I pointed out in that video, it's not that easy. Like, it's easy to say it, and it's easy to pitch you that I think a Batman Arkham game is coming. But you do have to remember, like, a lot of the people that are at Rocksteady right now, they are not the ones that gave us the trilogy that we actually liked, right? They're the people that gave us Suicide Squad. There's maybe some people left from there, but probably not a lot. So those are things to keep in mind, that although a new Batman game is probably pretty close to guaranteed, even if it's not from Rocksteady, by the way, I think it would just happen, right? You don't know the quality of it, so it's not like you're immediately being gifted this, like, killer game. But I do think Batman makes sense. Again, in terms of that name recognition, would it be cool of them to go off the board and do something different? Yes, but, again, the Arkham game sold, and even if it's not Batman Arkham blank, it can still be Batman something, right? and that game would sell. It'd be a chance to go back to basics, free flow combat, the more single player linear. Well, they got less linear, as the games opened up and as the games continued. But you get what I'm saying, right? It's a chance to not dumb it down, but to literally go back to the basics of the studio. So I think that makes a ton of sense. I feel like if you're going to link, like, remember when everybody was saying, like, oh, Remedy would make a great Control game. This is kind of like that, where it's like you can just see it. You can see it in the future, where it's not the exact same, because Remedy isn't making, a Doctor Strange game, but it's Rocksteady, Batman, kind of like a fallback type thing for them. It would be big for WB. It would sell, all that jazz. So that seems very, very likely. And then the final game, which I didn't put in the thumbnail because I wanted to kind of leave it as a surprise, Superman. I'm one of the only people that kind of talks about it, but I do feel like there is hope, like, in the community. I really believe it's going to happen. I think, we could say the same things we've always said, so I guess let's do it, right? The James Gunn thing, I do think, is an important, factor. And it's not necessarily just James Gunn, but Superman has always been an important character that for whatever reason, the DC gaming department has just like flat felt like they never had to touch, or if they were going to touch, it would be making him evil in every single game, right? It's such I think, a money maker. And again, I'm going back to that. I'm going back to that name recognition. I'm going back to that money maker. He's always been one. And you also look at how the movies, the new, phase or era of DC, what does it literally start with? It probably starts with what it should start with, a Superman movie. So I think that's very obvious, and that's what kind of everybody has been saying, but I do think the time is now. I really do. And whether that's James Gunn, because also, I don't know if you guys think about these things, but I kind of think of these things in like a funny way. When new leadership comes in, right? And especially, if you think about James and all them, they come in, they're making a Superman movie, they're getting like the new DC thing kicked off. They go to the games department or games division, and they say, like, so let me look at my notes here. You've never done this. You've never made like an actual Superman game, and you're not planning to. And they say, well, no, sir, we're too busy making Suicide. And you know what I mean? I don't know how that conversation goes. I'm sure it's less funny, and not even like that was a pretty bad joke. But I imagine it does get serious, where they look at it and say, this is a pillar of DC. And even if you look at it, they're still doing Batman-type stuff with Arkham Shadow. They're doing a Wonder Woman game. They just did Suicide Squad, which kind of went off the Suicide Squad movies, plural. But also, like, Superman. Superman is like one of the other pillars, unless you do Flash or Aquaman, but like you're going to do those over Superman, or you're going to do them before Superman. You know what I mean? So for me, it's all the reasons we've talked about and that are obvious, and they don't really tend to make the obvious decisions. I get that. Totally get that. But I do think the time is now. And as I've said, and this started completely as a theory. Now, there's been theory or predictions, I should say. There's been rumors that have said WB Montreal. I theorized that a long time. I really think it's WB Montreal, and I've said that for a long time. That single-player game I keep talking about, right? They're making a single-player game and a co-op game. I believe that single-player game is Superman. We'll see. I mean, I could very easily be wrong. I don't have that great of a shot of being right, but I really feel in my soul that that's the Superman game. Is that the right studio to do it? You can definitely have that discussion, and we will, if that ever happens and if we're talking about it, right? But I do believe that's what's going to happen. So those, to me, are the three most likely, and even like taking away which studios they're linked to, I think if somebody told you, hey, in the next 5 to 7 years, you get a Teen Titans, Batman, and Superman game, would you believe that? I think that's relatively believable. Versus if you say, oh, you're going to get a Captain Boomerang standalone game, you're going to get, Green Lantern, you're going to get a Flash game, you're going to get an Aquaman game. Some of those could be cool, but I just don't think, an Aquaman game Underseas would be my dream, like literally my dream. So trust me, I want it, but I don't think we're going to get it. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.